All right, and we are recording, I believe. Okay. Welcome to our last SOW Modern Change Lifecycle Launch and Learn session. Um, as I said before and in previous emails, during this call, we won't necessarily be covering anything new. On the screen, you'll see the topics that we've covered so far. What we thought of today, since we did have some personnel changes during this entire process, we won't be doing a recap or a roadmap. We want to kind of hold office hours. So if you all have any outstanding questions that maybe you asked in the past, weren't able to get answered, are kind of curious about, obviously anything surrounding change, we do welcome you to post it in the Q&A or come off mute and ask. Um, if you have no questions, you're welcome to stay, or please scan the QR code to fill out our survey. Um, Otherwise, yeah, just kind of an open floor here today. So let us know what's on your mind.
I think what would be worthwhile too, Chris, do we have a link to all of the previous recordings? Is that something that we can post out there?
Yes, I posted it in our email yesterday. Um, so honestly, if that's something that you feel like you don't have access to, ping me here and I can share access immediately. Um, it's a little bit of a headache to do the giant share with SharePoint. And it looks like we have a question in Q&A.
Oh, what do we have here? Performance analytics question. Okay. Let me check that, Matt. Let me check into that for you. Wonder if it's demo data. Let's see.
Yeah. Hey, Shiva, are you on the call?
Hey, Chris, yes, I'm looking at the second question.
Awesome.
Right,
If you
yeah.
do have an answer, would you be able to answer it out loud? Just because I'm not sure if the participants can actually see the Q&A, and so it
I
might
see.
be worthwhile to answer these questions publicly so everyone can benefit.
Is
I
that
see.
the Chad Hall? Hey, Chad, how are you doing? Chris got a question about the upcoming series on incident management.
Yes. So for the upcoming series on incident management, that starts in late October. If you want, you can send me an email, or I prefer that you fill out the survey that we have here in the slide. Um, for those of you who already filled out the survey and just clicked yes, from there we already have your information, and you'll see invite and the schedule for that upcoming launch and learn in your inbox within the next few weeks or so.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the question that I was taking a look at is, do we have a good roadmap, a guide plan on how to migrate from old original change workflows to the change models and then to SOW that a business can follow? So again, I don't know if we have like a migration plan from the old workflows to the change models. I'm sure there is some guidance that we can find out and kind of share it with you.
There's probably three questions there, right, Shiva? Which is,
Yeah.
first of all, migrating from workflow to flow. And then you've got migrating from mode 1 to mode 2, and then you've got use of SOW. And there is some codependency, but it's not hard, right? You could still be using SOW and mode 1 change and workflow if you wanted. But you're going to get more benefit from being on Flow Designer for sure, and being on models to use SOW. So I can explain some of that. I don't know how long, I'm not going to spend ages talking about it, but it seems like quite a good question to answer. So first of all, there's no reason why, technical reason why you need to migrate everything from workflow to flow, other than kind of keeping up with best practice. So you can start doing new change models with new flows attached to those state models, whilst continuing to use workflow. I think from a personal point of view, you know, if I was running a ServiceNow platform, I would want to have everything in flow, because it's just confusing otherwise. And you're just looking at two different sources for your kind of workflow history, and you're creating two different kind of methodologies. So first of all, there's separate path activity. First of all is migrating your change workflows, your existing change workflows to flow. So picking up the new change flows and migrating your normal standard emergency change workflows onto that flow. The second thing, which can kind of be done in parallel, is working out how you're going to do change models. So working out if there's an area of the business that that would benefit from change models, an area of IT. I think I shared a little bit about that, you know, kind of approaches to that. So setting up a pilot and working out what the benefits are, and then scaling that, because change models inherently allow you to work small and scale, right? You can set RBAC, so role-based access, on the change model. You can have its own discrete set of flows, so it's not interfering with normal change, and you don't have to re-audit or do anything with normal change. It's separated out. You can keep a close eye on it, and then you can start working with that area of the business to do that. And then the adoption of SOW and change. Well, you know, the closer you are to change models, the more kind of RBAC change models you're using, the more you've thought about change models, the more you're going to get out of the SOW experience, because that then allows you to have the experiences like purpose-driven change, you know, people having the right fields in front of them, being presented with the right catalog, that kind of stuff. Hope that answers the question.
I think one thing, Daniel, that looking at that question that I wanted to cover as well is, I just think it was, if we're looking at the same one that Lucy Harper pinged, that says, it seems change models don't really do anything, at least in our environment. They don't always follow what we have built in it. That's 100% accurate from a model point of view. So if you've done a bunch of customization around change, then the out-of-the-box change models aren't going to follow what you would have built in. But so what we did when we built models is that it sort of, there's parity between the old type, the mode 1 change, and the ones, the sort of the example models we ship out the box. They do the same things. And we've also replicated what we used to do in workflow in a subtly different way in flow. So you'll notice things like in the workflow side of the world, we have a normal workflow, a standard workflow. Actually, well, I think it's an example. There isn't actually one really, and an emergency one. Now, there's only a single workflow for each one of those. Whereas in models, we change things up to when we use flow on purpose. We found that managing those workflows could get a bit painful. They aren't very big workflows, but some customers have workflows that wouldn't fit on an A1 size piece of paper. There's some of the workflows are massive and very, very difficult to manage. So we broke those up into, each flow was its own separate discrete piece. So we only actually attach a flow when you move to assess. You can, if you need to do something with flow in new, by all means, but we don't. So out the box, you show assess for approvals, and then that flow is finished when you're finished, but the next one will fire up based on authorized. So have a look at what we did, because it should, in theory, make things a bit easier to manage. But if there is a certain amount that needs to be ported across, yeah, that's what would need to happen. But as Daniel said, you don't have to be on flow. You can absolutely manage your changes with models using workflow. But it is always nicer to be on the latest thing as well. And with flow doing what it's doing, and the optimizations, the work that goes into flow. And it's been heavily developed and worked on with performance and you name it as we speak. So it's an actively developed piece of functionality, which is always good.
Can I add to that? So we have a gigantic workflow. So we've got a lot of customization. We've actually had ServiceNow come in and do all of this stuff with us. So like in the change model, we've put I think we have 9 states. So obviously that's not out of the box. But we've put each state in there. We've said, from assess to task approvals, do it if this happens, that, whatever. So you have your if or statements in your change model. So with the workflow, because we don't want to go to Flow Designer yet, because I worked on that for 1.5 years and it never worked. So we're sticking with workflows for now, but it's still not firing correctly. Like we just put in wait 10 seconds because it's not updating the states. And it's, I would think that the model, because you've said, if this happens, then do this, but it's not. So I don't know what we're
Lucy, that genuinely sounds like it's worth raising a case for support.
We had one. We had one. We actually still have one. We actually are doing stuff with we've had 5 weeks of meetings with ServiceNow and no one can figure out how to make our stuff work. So it's kind of frustrating.
Has anybody, out of curiosity, has anybody from engineering been involved, out of curiosity, if you know?
Last week, I think her name was Sue.
Okay, not my team though. I'm just thinking it's highly likely if there's somebody from my team's been involved, you would have, we wrote it. We understand how it works. And if you've
that's what we keep asking for is somebody like you.
Okay. So Lucy, I've been across, definitely tens and maybe more customers doing this, and I've never heard of that kind of issue. So what I'll do is I'll drop you a line and we'll pick this up. Okay, so just for the rest of the call, this is not something we're seeing across the place. We would tell you if it was, right? We wouldn't, but it's, and we'd probably be sweating a bit more when we have these kind of calls if, stuff was breaking left, right, and center. So the point of moving to Flow is it's easier, right? And you can break down, you can create a set, as Cameron was saying, a set of kind of modular components that allow you to make change work in the situations that your business needs it to work. We don't see it as being a heavy kind of lift and shift. You can do it at the rate you want, and that's why we called it multimodal, because you can do mode 1 and mode 2. But Lucy, let me find your email address somewhere and pick this up after. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Daniel, will you sync up with me once you got those details? I can go and have a look.
Sure. I will do. Be great.
I don't know how the chat works, but if you want to chat, if you want to ping me directly what that case number was as well, just so I can have a look at that.
Okay.
Just chuck it into chat directly to me. That'd be great. Thanks.
Okay. I can send you the last 1.5 years worth of them too. But no,
the latest one will be fine. I can go grab the history if I need to. Thank you.
I'll summarize it, right? So, yeah.
I'll send you the last one. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question here from Victor. What's the difference between change DevOps feature in change management versus the actual DevOps module in ServiceNow? So they are different but the same. So change management is going to show the DevOps information. DevOps information is designed to display within a change ticket. So once you have that configured in the workspace, you can specify what types of changes, what models of changes you would like to display DevOps data, and then the two will interact together with each other. So at the moment, really, DevOps doesn't display much else anywhere besides change tickets themselves. I hope that helped, Victor.
Yes, Isaac. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Brian, on the last one, there is a comment, I think, from Brian, which talks about ensure outage records are accurately captured in a world with less manual touch points in the change process. So I don't know if you want to just come off mute and kind of talk a little bit more about what you are doing today. If you're still on the call.
Right. So we have users or groups creating change records, utilizing APIs, and we have Azure records as well. And how do we know when the change is going to create an outage without the manual process that is used today?
I see. So today, when these changes are coming in through API, then is someone going and creating those outage records manually in ServiceNow, or you don't even track them in ServiceNow?
No, I think our concern is that there could be an outage, but they're not creating the outage records.
I see. I see what you're saying. Okay. So the changes are coming in through APIs. You have an automation in place. But if there is a change that is going to cause an outage, then you want that relevant information to be in ServiceNow as well. Am I getting that right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then, Ryan, when these changes are getting created, not every change that is coming from the API integration will cause an outage, right? So would it be fair to say that based on some contextual information in that change, we can determine if an outage will be caused or not?
Right. That's kind of the question, or the scenario is how do we
determine? Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I know, because this is absolutely like today, I understand, we do like a manual creation of outage records, whether it's incident alerts or changes, irrespective. And that is something that we are actually kind of trying to solve, at least starting with incident and alert first, to say that, same thing with incoming alerts. Not every alert will kind of lead into an outage record, but how do we kind of determine? So I'm hoping whatever we are learning from that space, we can apply to change as well. Danielle, I don't know if you have any thoughts around that, and if you have seen any other customer do anything.
It's true that outage records are a little contentious, right? Raising them automatically can be a bit of a political hot potato in an organization. So it's quite tricky to know, how we would validate that an outage raised by another system was accurate. If you're measuring people's performance on service uptime or application uptime, and you've got a system that's putting in outage records, then it can be a little bit contentious to do that. So it's tricky to work out exactly what the data point is we need and what the process is around that.
Yeah, it can be, but at the same time, it's almost like if you're creating them manually, then that is also like you cannot rely on the outage record information either. So that's where we were talking to our ITOM team and trying to figure out, what are those scenarios where you will actually create an outage record automatically. And you have to be sure about it. I'm with you on that anyway. Yeah.
Can we ask questions out loud, or should we just put them in the chat?
Well, you can absolutely ask loud. Yeah.
Well, I was curious from Brian's perspective. We're doing DevOps now, and we're automating change requests and so forth. So the question I wanted to start off with was, Brian, are all the change requests that you're doing automated, or do you have some automated and some manual?
Both.
You have both. So in our scenario, it would be if you need an outage record, it must be a manual change because you need permission to create an outage. So therefore, it would never be automated. So then you don't need the automated data, the way we would look at it. So we have laid out some policies with regard to an automated change request, full deployment, testing, closure, so forth. And those would generally be deemed low risk, low impact, no outage type scenarios. And then by managing the manual ones, outages would belong there. And ServiceNow, the workflow does have a way to capture an outage record using the change process, the change enablement process. At least that's the way I see it working here at our company.
So, and that's how we are hoping that ours is going to work. ours is based on risk, moderate and high risk, which would have an outage associated with it, or could have an outage associated, should be done manually. And so that's what we've asked, and so I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, part of the automation that you end up putting in place can take a look at how your risk calculations occur, and they'll put in a variable that'll basically say something to the effect of, if your risk is 1 to 2, it can be this. If it's 3 to 4, it can be that. If it's 2 to 3, it can be that. Right? It's all in how you want to have it coded to support the way you want to do your business. At least that's what I'm seeing with our folks. I can't speak for anybody else's company, but we're just starting that road of DevOps right now. We're working through all the necessary fields for change enablement and so forth. We just have a very bulky process, and there's a lot of information required here. I think in part because we have gaps elsewhere that some of that information could be residing that we either don't do or don't do well. So like release management, for instance, and the connection to release to change. So things like that.
Thanks for your perspective. That's exactly where we're at.
Yeah, it's just difficult because you can't anticipate an outage if it's in an outage that was created by mistake, right? The way we would look at some of those things is through the establishment of the CMDB and your release windows, your maintenance windows, or whatever you guys choose to call it, and working within those windows reduces your risk. And you can identify specific CIs that would require an outage. And so if that CI or service offering, or if you have application services or what have you, you could effectively use your CMDB to identify those, at least from a perspective of, hey, anytime we do this type of change, we require an outage. Therefore, you now have a flag set that you can utilize as part of your however your API is going to work to create those change requests. Well, opportunities there if your CMDB is being used in that fashion.
Brian, do you have
Food for
any?
thought.
Yeah, do you have any monitoring or alerting tools that you have connected? Like
Yes, they're more so for incident creation and notification. That I believe that we're going to, with VR CMDB, they are going to do some monitoring for unauthorized change in the near future.
That sounds
we're in process.
Okay.
Looks like we have a couple questions in the Q&As. Anyone able to answer those?
I'm looking
at the flow one now.
Yeah, I'm looking at Eduardo's one.
MJ, would you mind putting your question in the Q&A?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're okay.
I just put it in there now.
Awesome, thank you.
You know, Eduardo, there's actually Flow Designer versioning. So there could be potential risk to using the sys update version table. And that would not be recommended because it's more so used to track changes, right? Manipulating it is not what it's there for. So as far as Flow Designer, I would recommend using its inherent version control feature. Daniel, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I was just about to say, so yeah, I mean, you would roll back the flow and you're not using, you sound like you're just using update sets for that, yeah, update sets. So you would just roll back the flow and put in an update set and fix forward. That sounds like a much safer way of doing things. And fix forward is always like a nicer approach than appearing to roll back. Inherently kind of creates less problems.
Yeah.
I was just having a read of Chad's one. I'm just trying to work out. Chad, are you trying to determine if you have approvals in the assess state on your change, and then you have another set of approvals in authorized, for example, using an out-of-the-box state model? Are you trying to determine which approvals were bound to which state, just to be able to track them in a more sort of fine-grained type of way? Is that what you're asking?
Kind of to which state and which approval policy, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
I've seen that before, Cameron, as well, quite a few times. Is trying to track back where there's a complex approval, situation, which actual policy was the person responsible for approving.
Okay, and that's because I know we do specify on the change which approval policy is the one that was applied. So that is a related list. I think we have it out the box on change.
Yeah.
So that's there. But if you need to, so we know which one that one was. And let me just check what else we actually put in there. Give me a sec to, I would have to go and look to see what it is that we did there. But there's a couple of things.
I've seen that, but does that show the kind of the action that was actually taken for that policy?
I've had a little dig and I couldn't see a way of linking it after the fact easily.
Yeah.
I've suggested maybe as a workaround, just creating a call to just pop it in the work notes for change. So you can track that, because we have customers who are with registry requirements to report that back. Is it an activity that you need to do on every change, or is it something that you would need to look at specific changes where maybe something goes wrong, or you have some kind of compliance issue with it, you need to then do a compliance report on it? Is it?
It's not something we do for every change. I guess I would say the latter, but you don't really know until after the fact whether you're going to need to look at that history, right?
No, so the thing that if we will associate the change approval policy that we applied at the point that we generate the approvals for it, but I don't think we associate any further information with that, because at that point in time, if somebody we then actually jump into the ask for approval side. So the way change approval policies has been built is it uses decision tables, which is a platform feature which allows us to put together the various decisions with their answers in a really nice way. But then that's all just sort of wrapped up with the ask for approval flow action. That's what it literally just, it leverages the exact same piece of code that handles that. So it's the approval side of the world that's actually doing the work for us. And that's, we support all the bits, most of the bits, and all the bits that approval support as well. So we don't actually track that information. I can tell you that the decision that we took was the maybe assess technical approvals, and the action was assignment group approval, and that's when we generate the approvals. And the same thing goes for CAB. It requires CAB approval, and it was the CAB approval action that we took. And we pop in the activity name there as well. So we do specify the activity that was that we did that one was for as well. So we know which decision that came out of, but we don't specify, for example, anything else other than that. So you're still going to see your network group with all the approvals, whether one is approved and the rest are no longer required. So we don't actually log more than that. There's a couple of limitations as it stands right now, though. In that we don't know, actually, because Flow doesn't know which specific approval, ask for approval action or approval policy flow action. It doesn't really make a difference. One and the same, you could argue. It doesn't actually know which one of those is the one that has and owns the approvals at this point in time either. There's various reasons for this. Most of those are actually performance. Lots of lessons learned from the approval side of the world and on workflow, and they've done incredibly amount of work to try and make Flow and the approval side of that as performant as possible as well. So no, we don't. Precisely what you're asking for, Chad, isn't we don't have the capability as it stands right now. No.
Okay.
Do I have any recommendations for making the approval timeline more understandable? I mean, something that Daniel said might be useful if it's work notes related. I mean, I generally hate going over work notes. I work cases and case tasks for our customers, for us, and to help support relatively regularly. And sometimes trying to track through the information that's put in from various people can be incredibly difficult to do. Changes, I'm guessing, would definitely have a lot fewer updates in the work notes. That might be an option. But the best way to track the timeline on that, I'll definitely have a bit of a think about that. I might just have a chat with Daniel because looks like he's got some experience around that, and with the issues that customers have. There might be something that we can slot into the roadmap for some point in time to really look at enhancing how we report on that or track some of those things to make life a little bit easier. But no, nothing that's going to be very helpful at this point in time. Sorry, but definitely take it away and have a think about it.
Okay, thanks.
Question from Joan. She is asking about monitoring for unauthorized changes. So, Joan, yeah, first and most importantly, you will need discovery to make use of unauthorized changes. So that is one of the major products in the ITOM suite. Okay, so if you have discovery, you also need to definitely have a mature CMDB, right? Because when we look at unauthorized changes, it's only looking for applications in your service mapping. So first you need discovery, then you need a mature CMDB, then you also have to have applications in service mapping, right? So the reason for that is if something goes down, it's going to be an application, right? So discovery looks and sees if there's any deltas or any changes that are already in place for a certain CI and verifies if it's allowed. Okay, so there's a list of CI classes that can have unauthorized changes like memory on an end user PC. Okay, but if the application is of importance, it creates an emergency change with the CI and notes from the discovery process. So hopefully that kind of gives you a foundation of what you want to look into for unauthorized changes.
That answer your question, Joe?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Awesome. So we have No open questions. Anyone else have anything top of mind? We can wait here a few more minutes.
I got a question, Chris, for the customers. Has anyone implemented anything on the back of these webinars, or been prompted to adopt a different part of the product or think about things differently, like actively, or has anyone actually, done that and had enough time to realize value from doing it? It would be a good bit of feedback to us to learn if anyone has.
Hey, this is Matt here with MetLife. The next gen risk kind of gave some ideas when you're talking about the change success score plugin. We already have, sorry, my phone's blowing up in the background. I mute that. We had already adopted the use of the change success score plugin. We call it a change quality rating because we MetLifeified it, we'll say, where we're incorporating it directly into our risk conditions. We were leveraging the information, or trying to leverage the information, just kind of like procedurally, but it spurred the idea of being able to incorporate it directly into the risk conditions. So that part was helpful. It'd be interesting to see like how, like on that one page that you had with all the boxes and the arrows, it looked like it was something separate from risk conditions, but we've actually pulled it directly into risk conditions.
Yeah, no, that's a great call out, Matt, because this is Michael John Herndon from Elevance Health. We were looking to leverage the change success score. We've been calling it kind of the credit score. And the challenge for us is, one, filtering out some of the groups that aren't involved in change. It kind of throws off the overall risk score dashboard for us. But outside of that, really, we're trying to make risk calculation less user subjective, because users try to game it, and really make it more quantitative. So we had some things in the back end that we did, configure, customize, whichever works best for you, that helps calculate certain things, which the change success score is factoring in, like how many P1, high priority incidents are involved by, caused by change and things of that nature. So we really want to leverage it more, just, having challenges trying to incorporate it into the calculations is where we're having challenges. But I think that was one of the good things we did see from these sessions, is understanding how next gen success, risk calculations work and can work for us.
Yeah, we've had pretty good success with it. If you want to reach out, I can partner up with you, give you some suggestions on how we've done it. Just for awareness for the ServiceNow team, we're going to try and copyright the changes that we've made to it. We've also made a change success score plugin kind of equivalency for configuration items. So it's kind of a twofold. There's the group doing the change, but there's also how well does the configuration item, the application, the service at receiving change, as a kind of a two-prong approach to measuring risk. So far, it's looking pretty good.
Cool. I'm just wondering as well, because you've got the two different approaches, right? You can reuse that score in a risk condition, or I've seen customers as well using it directly in approval policy. Are you on approval policy yet for change, or are you moving towards that?
We are on approval policy, and we're looking at leveraging that primarily. We still have change advisory boards, like it's the 1990s. Yeah. So we're looking at automating the approval for those really successful groups through approval policy. So it still generates, but it's pre-approved for them. But we're not quite there yet.
I think one of the effective. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Daniel. Go ahead, Daniel. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's your call. You talk.
No, Matt, I was going to ask, how confident are you with the calculation of the success scores for your teams, in terms of using it to go and kind of give them the fast pass to change management approvals based off of it?
Yeah, the out of the box calculation didn't give warm and fuzzies. So like I said, we MetLifeified it. So we converted it to be 12 months instead of 30 days on
yeah, we've changed some of that as well.
Yeah. And we, rather than looking at the incidents and the priority of the incidents, we're looking at the outages. Like, what was the actual business impact from that change? Did you cause the business outage? And incorporating the outage record based off the incident rather than the incident directly. And using the hours, how many impact hours did you actually cause? Because not every incident's the same, right? And not even every major incident is the same, right? A P1 that lasts 10 minutes should not be weighed the same as a P1 that had 10 hours of outage.
Right.
Well, what I was going to say just then as well ties in with what you're saying, which is kind of indirectly, which is your ability to analyze failed change is really important to your ability to allow teams to work faster and understand whether the risk calculations have been done correctly, because you only really understand risk when it manifests, right? I mean, there are ways to do it. It's like we only know why planes crash from the black boxes, right? So so near misses and failed changes are really important to analyze. It sounds from the approach you're taking like you've got a good understanding of how those how those failed changes are there, because you've got the idea of impact and you know that's accurate from incident outages, which is good.
Yeah, hold on. I would go so far as to actually call that plugin and the updates that we made to it kind of a game changer for the way we approach and manage risk, right? So a lot of it is reactive. Historically, it was reactive when something happens, but now we can use that historical data to proactively combat it moving forward.
Mark, thank you for insight. Just a follow-up question on something that you called out, CAB Workbench or just CABs in general. What are you thinking? Are you thinking you're going to go more into the direction of kind of creating dynamic groups for approvals, or are you thinking, CABs are still relevant?
I would very much disagree with the latter statement there, me personally, right?
Yes.
And I think the data reflects it, where CAB is a no value add process, at least here at MetLife. It doesn't really do much in the form of communication because it's always at the 11th hour of the change. And it doesn't really do much to avoid impacts because the people attending the CAB generally come there with the best intentions and hoping for the best, right? They might be planning for the worst, but they're hoping for the best. And that's how they will socialize the change. So CAB's not really doing much to keep stability in that regard. The first part of your question, we do have specific groups, ServiceNow groups. We have a bunch of different CABs because we're a global organization. So every country, every region has its own CAB. And we want to kind of scale that back, kind of roll it back. And eventually, hopefully, I'm knocking on wood over here, remove them from the process so that we can improve the velocity of change.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. Anyone else on the call has, an opinion, feedback on just CAB process in general?
Yeah, Sheba, this is Michael John from Elevance Health. We still use CAB. We actually have 2 CABs. We definitely feel there is value to the CAB from more of a communication perspective. So teams are aware of what's going on, especially as we have big releases over weekends and whatnot. As it relates to prevention of outages, I kind of agree. They don't prevent things from happening. Unfortunately, we still have outages when changes go awry for whatever reason. But it does at least give, I'll say, our network team, our technology operations center and other areas that have to respond to outages, kind of a understanding of what's going on in the environment leading up to weekends and things of that nature. So there's value in trying to reduce mean time to repair based on the CAB. But prevention, you can have a change and do everything right and still have an outage. So whether you have a CAB, whether there's approvals, something can still go wrong. So, it's kind of hard to say it's preventative at that point.
Yeah, got it.
Is there anyone on the call who's looking to reduce CAB or looking to move it into more of a release process? So separation of release and deploy, and it probably mainly applies to like mode 2 type changes, but I can see mode 1 where it would work as well. So that's changes where you have kind of either CI/CD pipelines or you have an idea of doing lots of small changes or blue-green deployments or like feature toggling, that kind of stuff. But where you're allowing change to flow and not needing that cab to be there because you've got those kind of business sign-offs in the release layer. Is there anyone who's in that kind of paradigm who's moving towards that?
Yeah, Daniel. Well, in my case, I've been looking into see how I can plug in releases and part of DevOps as well in Honeywell. Currently, the change management process, it's just getting overloaded with all of that it's not in ServiceNow at the moment. We have teams doing releases in other applications or using Jira, but it's not connected to ServiceNow. So I'm feeling the same, that as well cabs seem them to work effectively because we're trying to hold things to that point, where it should be the other way around, right? Cap should be maybe just to review a couple of things and it's ready to go, right? Because you had all the pre-work before. So I've been doing some investigation about that. And I know that I think the plan is that ServiceNow will improve the release management module next year. That's what I heard. I don't have anything else.
We have something in labs right now. So we have digital product releases labs. If you look in store, I'm pretty sure it's available to everyone. Shiva, can you confirm? Maybe confirm that, or someone else, Matt.
What is that, Daniel?
Digital product release is in. I know it's in labs, but I think I don't know whether I could just get to it because I work for ServiceNow. I haven't checked that, but I'm pretty sure it's available for subprod instances widely, and it's part of the standard ITSM license. Although it's greatly enhanced by having Pro and DevOps plug turned on.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. It is. I just don't know if it is like a approval-based innovation labs, because sometimes I need to.
I think there's a fairly lightweight approval on it.
Approval, yeah. I'm actually meeting with Colin later today, so I can find out more.
But it's a really interesting product, right? And that's one of the reasons I was kind of asking the question, is just to find out how that's kind of, whether people are moving towards it. It certainly seems like customers I talked to are moving towards that. Nice bit of innovation.
Anything else? This has been an incredible call, by the way. I'm going to be spending a good amount of time trying to record everything that was said verbally. We'll try to, for those of you that may have missed something, we'll try to send you a follow-up with some of these questions and answers.
Is there anyone who feels we didn't cover something in this series, or there's something we really missed, or something that we didn't cover in enough depth, and it's like, well, I had a go at that, but I just didn't have enough information. We did try and kind of give supporting materials that had a bit of depth to them, as well as kind of going over a lot of topics. So just wondering if there's anything that really confuses people that we haven't, or maybe just still confuses them despite the fact we talked about it. So,
No.
Good.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd call it perfect, but if there is anything that you all wish you heard more from, please let us know. These kinds of calls and your feedback really does help us to figure out what direction we want to have with the product and what new documentation should be first. We know we kind of have a ways to go on some of this, but your feedback is very integral in that process.
I will suggest something. So the multimodal change one, like some of the other ones that we had earlier on, there was more of a how-to, like, we actually saw how he did stuff and, went through the actual process of it, where with the change model, the multimodal, I don't think it was pretty high level. So I would think it would be nicer to go in deeper.
Okay. That was one of mine, so I appreciate the feedback, and maybe I'll talk to Chris about that and see what we can do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lucy. Anyone else? No. All right. Well, if there are no, does anyone on our end have any questions for our customers here today before I close this up? All right, awesome.
Good.
Well, thank you, everyone. Very much appreciate everything you've given us, attending these sessions, participating. It's been an absolute wonderful process. As always, I'll try to get a recap out to you by Friday with the recording. Please fill out that survey if you haven't already. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to me directly via email or anyone on the call for that matter. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your weeks.
Thanks, Christopher. Thanks, team.
Guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.